bells ringing?
Dun dun dun. Sorry, I'm not good at singing.
Bum, 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 bum.
You know, if I'm walking, I'll hear those bells.
The bells in the main administration building?
Well, it was the chimes for the clock. They tell us what time it is every 15 minutes and on the hour.
And then, you know, if you hear the right ring, oh, it's 2 o'clock or something like that. Don't even need a watch.
So this is for people without watches?
It's like my grandmother's chime had, she had an old grandfather clock that had a similar chime.
Yeah, it is my doorbell at home. I've never thought about that.
Well, I guess it gives someone a job, right? The bell ringer.
Dun dun dun.
They're not real bells. It's a recording.
Dun 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 dun.
The Westminster quarters make up a pattern of notes that we hear all the time if we want to know what time it is. And it dates back to the late 18th century, when in Cambridge, England, at Great St. Mary's Church, there was a new clock, but some musicians, possibly a law professor with the help of a music professor and a music student, came up with this series of notes that we now hear to mark time all over the world. Now in 2016 at the University of Arizona, we have the same pattern of notes that we hear at Big Ben. It's called the Westminster quarters. First 4 notes that we hear, this is for 15 minutes. At 30 minutes, this is what we hear. And so what we get here at the hour is you don't have to write a complicated melody to make a melody that people are going to listen to, understand, appreciate, or get something out of. And this is a great example of that. I can imagine that at different places on the mall, you're going to get very different impression of this tune.
The auditory experience of hearing these bells is different depending on where you happen to be listening. The mall is set up beautifully to create a lot of reflections back and forth from the north side to the south side. We picked this particular spot because we're going to make a recording with the bell sound passing by our microphone, and it's going to travel across the mall, and it will reflect off of the very flat surface of the Koffler building and come back, and we'll also then record the reflection. Before we do the next recording, I'm going to make a measurement of the distance from this recording over to the Koffler building. 6.5 feet, 3, 24, 25, 26, and the middle tile is actually bigger. That gives us 13 feet, 6, 47, 48, 49, 50. All right, so we counted 104 tiles on this sidewalk. I'm gonna log that in here, 104 feet. The other piece of information we need in order to know exactly what the speed of sound is today is the air temperature. Here at 6:07 p.m. on July 20th, 2016 is 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Last week we made recordings on the U of A Mall of the chimes that go off every quarter of an hour. I'm waiting now for Matt to come over from the music department, and I'm going to show him some of the analyses that I've done since our recording last week.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking with Brad about what he found out about the Westminster chimes and how they sound different parts of campus, and what that means for how we experience this piece that a lot of us don't even think about experiencing, but it's part of our life here at the U of A.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, Brad, how are you?
Brad Story. Good to meet you.
Good to see you.
Well, come on in. I think we're gonna.
All right.
I want to show you some data that we recorded last week. So this is a map of the U of A Mall, and the sound source is somewhere on top of the administration building. The effect that people experience, the auditory effect, is that you get extra beats that pop up and they're different depending on where you happen to be standing. So the hypothesis is that it's coming from reflections off buildings.
We like to think of music as, here's the score, these are the notes, and we analyze them, but to think that it might have this kind of origin, and that it's still being, 200, more than 250 years later, it's still being reinvented just automatically by our environment, that these pitches are being reinvented.
You write the music, but then you launch the music into whatever environment it happens to be, and it takes on the life of that context.
I don't often go outside and think, oh, it's 5:55, I'm gonna go check out the Westminster Chimes, but I think it's something I might start to do and just really say, this is part of all of our environment here.
And if you think about a typical undergraduate being here, let's just say fall and spring semester for 4 years, they're going to hear those somewhere between 15 and 20,000 times.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And so it becomes a part of every graduate's experience at the U of A.
Yeah, it's the soundtrack for their experience. And,
yes.
And it's easy to take for granted.
Right.
It's like,
That along with Bear Down, Arizona.
right, exactly. This is more heard than Bear Down, Arizona. So
Absolutely.
way more
Certainly
heard,
is.
yeah.
Uh-huh.